So I'll ask anyway, who are you?
So my name's Jeff Hoerger, and currently I'm the director of the Bucks County Vet Center, and we're part of the Veterans Administration, and we're an outpatient counseling center for combat veterans and survivors of military sexual trauma of all ages.
Okay. So I guess I could start with, take me through the day to day. What does that really entail for you?
So I have a fairly small staff. I have two other counselors, an office manager and an outreach coordinator. And what we do is try to go in the local area and find veterans that need some help. Probably 90% of what we do is trauma counseling, working with vets that have post-traumatic stress. And we each have our own individual caseload, and we just kind of manage them through the week and, see what kind of help they need. Sometimes they need additional help, so we might refer them on to a hospital program or an inpatient program somewhere. But a lot of it, is just the outpatient counseling folks come in once a week and work with us, and we try to give them life skills and, just different symptom management skills to handle their post-traumatic stress.
Wow. So, you seem far along in the journey. How did you get into this? What led you through it?
So I was active duty military. I was a naval officer, and I went in 1980 and was in for 11 years during the Reagan administration. So there wasn't too much war fighting going on. Nobody messed with Ronald Reagan. So at the, one of my collateral duties was always to act as a drug and alcohol counselor, whatever station I was assigned to. And so I kind of got into that. And so toward the end of my active duty time, I went back to graduate school. I went to Bowie State University in Maryland and, got my master's in counseling.
Wow. Master's in counseling. So where do you go from there? Where do you go out of college? So you're just like, did you always want to work with veterans or?
No, it was kind of a weird journey because when I got out of the service, I was kind of done with the military for a while. I worked in Washington, D.C. with a couple of employee assistance programs for a little bit, and then we moved up to this area. And probably within 2 months of moving here, I got a job at Rutgers University running their employee assistance program. And I stayed there for almost 18 years and, got right-sized. And 2 years later, I ended up here. I did work with the New Jersey National Guard family program for 2 years after Rutgers. And, that kind of got me into the veteran thing again. And I really enjoyed working with military and military families. And then this center was opening up. I met a couple of other vet center directors from the Philly area and started chatting them up about it. And they thought it might be a good fit. So we opened in 2010 and I've been here ever since.
Okay. Wow. So I am curious, and I don't want this podcast to be all about how you ran into my grandfather, but how did you run into him?
He showed up one day. He just came in and he's like this little excitable guy and just telling us about his golf program and Project Hope and could we promote it, and also he was just looking for literature from what we did. He said, I want to help promote what you guys do. There's a lot of vets out there that need help and I can spread the word. So he was a great messenger. He talks us up anytime he has the chance to. And it's just been a really nice relationship for years. John's become a really good friend of mine. And, I always enjoy talking to him. He's given me and my wife golf lessons and,
sure.
That's what he does. Right. Yeah. So, but he's just an old school gentleman and he's just a classy guy and very, very nice, very funny and very engaging with veterans. He runs, Project Hope, PGA Hope, twice a year for us. And, he just brings all these vets together and he makes it like, come into a clubhouse or something. He always starts off every session with, a couple of jokes. He's very corny and, you've been listening to this your whole life, right? So, but patriotic too. We always say the Pledge of Allegiance before we start, and he brings in these great golf pros from all around the area and just teaches clinics for us. He teaches us how to putt, how to chip, how to drive. He lets us go out and play 9 if we want to do that. And he runs, those programs run for 5 or 6 weeks in the fall and the spring. Mm-hmm. So
did you ever have a lot of people come in here and, I guess bring up golf in any sense, or was that something that you actually pitched to people to say, hey, like this can help? Or
We kept some of his, we keep flyers out. I keep a set of clubs in my office, and so sometimes that's just a good conversation starter. You always look for ways to connect with people when they first come in. I mean, any veteran that comes in is usually not sure they want to be here or scared to death of being here because, in a lot of cases, we're the first person that they've ever told their story to. They go to war, they come home, and maybe they never wanted to talk about it with their families, and so they come in here, and off they go. And so sometimes just getting them warmed up, talking about golf or whatever they like to do, and just to get to know them a little bit better. That's a good icebreaker.
Sure. I learned from the last podcast I did with a lady named Roanne. She's out in Harrisburg. That she said the same thing. A lot of people are new to opening up about things. So I guess you've been doing this a long time. How have you, I guess, gotten people to do that? Is it start off really slow, or is it something?
It depends. Some people are like a shook up bottle of soda. They just, you take the top off and they're just ready to spill. They just want to talk because they've been carrying it around for, however long ago their war was, and the Vietnam vets, some have been carrying stuff for 60 years.
Wow.
Iraq and Afghanistan guys, they're a little bit younger, but they've still been involved in it since, the turn of the, 2001, 2002. So everybody has their stories, and sometimes they want to come talk right away. I've had veterans come in and they just sit and cry for the first session, just cry, and that's fine. I'll just sit there with them, and they'll apologize. I'll say, no, you got 50 years of tears to get rid of, and then we can start to talk about stuff. So we just want to make it comfortable for them. The good thing about this job is that I don't have to cap sessions. I can see people for as long as I want to. We've had people come in for years. I still see people that I saw my first year here. Not every week, but they'll come in for monthly checkup, or I think we're a good touchstone for them just to see how they're doing in their life. They like to come in and talk about when things get a little wonky. They like to come in and share their successes too, and it's been a really nice journey. I get to walk with heroes every day, so it doesn't get much better than that.
It's really awesome. I'm not too well versed in the in the field of what you do really, but I would imagine that you've seen and heard some stories around. So what kept you sticking with it all this time? Just the love for
years ago when I worked at Rutgers, I had a friend tell somebody else, they said, go see Jeff. He's really good at putting people back together again. And to me, that was like the highest compliment. And here, I get to do that every day. I get to see people progress in their lives. I get to, a lot of times, folks with post-traumatic stress, they go through multiple marriages, multiple drinking and drugging problems, multiple jobs, and just to see them, obtain some peace in their life and some consistency in their life, and actually be able to work on relationships and just have a happier life. That's really gratifying.
It's amazing. Were you always one to talk to people and just listen? Because you do strike me as the type to just listen.
Yeah,
and you have such a nice voice too.
Thank you.
You're great to talk to. Yeah,
it's my radio voice.
Because I'm listening in the headphones, and you do have a really awesome, nice, deep voice.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So,
did you ever do radio by any chance? Anything?
In college, a little bit. I had a friend who ran a midnight jazz program on the college station, so I'd go up and visit with him, and he'd let me do stuff once in a while. But, yeah. But it's, counseling is just, I used to think that we had to be responsible for actually repairing folks. And a lot of times it's just, finding folks where they are, walking with them on their journey a little bit, pointing out some things along the way, maybe giving them some skills that'll help them manage things. We don't make decisions for them or anything. They make their own life choices. But, it's just like, we get to be a companion as they go through their journey, and to see folks have success on that journey and, overcome some long-standing problems. That's a lot of fun.
Wow. So I guess to tie it back into golf, I mean, we both know golf can be like annoying.
Yeah.
A little bit. So have you found a commonality amongst amongst the people you talk to as you go on that like they're getting more and more into golf through your recommendations, or just by being in the Ben Salem area and seeing what goes on?
I think a little bit of everything. I mean, we all suck. You know, every golfer that I know sucks except for your grandfather.
Yeah, seriously. I'm right there with
so we're all out there, playing field hockey or something. And, but it's just, being out in a beautiful place with guys that are having fun. And, if nobody's taking things too seriously, we just kind of joke. And, it's just a nice, 3 or 4 hours away from reality. And, it's like playing again. It's like you're a little kid.
Yeah.
Just come home from school, put on your play clothes, and go run around.
I see. So what is going on at the moment in your life that you're really looking forward to, or you're really like, what's the big project you're doing, or is it always a continuous?
It's continuous. Things show up right now. Years ago we started a program with a local group called Megan's Foundation, and they offer free yoga classes and meditation classes for veterans. And we were the first group to do that with them. And so, we started at a studio in Bristol, and, we were running classes a couple of times a week. And then, now the program is spread all around Bucks County and down into Philadelphia. And so I like alternative therapies. I think anytime you can get folks, to do things that'll take care of their bodies, and yoga's great. And yoga's a great stress reliever. It's great for old men with achy bodies, because it stretches them and, teaches them to breathe properly. And so it's, that's fun. Right now I'm also working with a program called Victor 6, which is, was started by a local Vietnam veteran named Dave Christian. And he's been, he puts together fitness classes for area vets at the Newtown Athletic Club.
Okay.
And so we meet up there twice a week rather. And, they run you through different exercises and, different techniques and methods of exercising. And that's a 3-month program. And then they give you another 3 months at the NAC for free. So that's a really good thing. So there's a lot of veterans organizations that are doing things like that, the adjunct therapies, and it's all just about creating community again.
Right.
A lot of veterans, because of what they go through, they feel very isolated, and, they don't want to leave home too much. So, and they don't trust anybody but other vets. So if you can put them all in a group, they find some commonality, and they're out socializing again and actually living a life.
Throughout your time, I guess at university, was there anything leading you to believe that you would end up in this line of work necessarily?
As a counselor?
With veterans specifically, or?
Not until I was probably, I get out of the Navy in my early 30s, and I just gone to grad school for that. So probably midway through my Navy career, I started to think that, counseling might be a kind of a viable profession. And, then, right after the Reagan era, they downsized the Navy, basically cut it in half. So I was one of the downsized. And so I'd been going to graduate school for a couple of years before that, because I kind of saw the writing on the wall. And, I was in position to, finish my counseling degree right before I got out of the service. It seemed like a good fit. It never feels like work. I never get tired of it. Sometimes I get tired from it, because, it can be kind of grueling sometimes, but it's always fun. It's always fun to come into work and just, see what the day brings and see what problems you can solve and who you can fix.
I see. Do you mind me asking what you did in the service specifically?
I did a little bit of it. So I went through officer candidate school, and, I had a recreation education degree. So I was like zeroly qualified to do anything military. Okay. Had never even thought about it as a possibility, but there I was. So my first job, I was an anti-submarine warfare officer on a really, really old destroyer. So I was in charge of like torpedoes and rocket launch torpedoes and sonars and things like that. I have no idea how any of this stuff worked. I was, basically a division officer, so I was the administrator, and then I had, technicians that worked for me and really good chiefs that kind of managed the technicians. The destroyer was a lot of fun because we'd go on Great Lakes cruises every summer. I never deployed overseas. I never fought a war. I'd just go, do these showboat tours around the Great Lakes, and did that 2 years in a row. Then I went to the USS Constellation, which is an aircraft carrier on the West Coast. And I was an engineer on that for about 2 years. Came back east and just ran reserve centers in New York, on Long Island, and then a regional training command down in D.C. Then I got out.
Yeah, you've really been all over the place.
Yeah. I've got, what do I have? I think I have 7 states left, mostly in the Northwest that I have to hit. But
7 left?
Yeah. I got to do Alaska, Hawaii, and then 5. Like the Idahos and the both Dakotas and something else.
Montana?
Yes, but we're taking care of that this summer. I mean, this spring rather. We're going out to Yellowstone for a week, so that should be fun. So we'll get Montana and Wyoming knocked out.
That's awesome. That was at what point in the journey did it become like we got to do all 50?
It never. Actually, my son-in-law kind of started. One of his life goals was to actually spend a night in every state, and I can't claim that. I've driven through a bunch of them, but I never spent the night there. But
right.
I'm just happy to have set foot in them, and so it just kind of became a thing. And then as we went along, it's like, oh man, we're collecting a bunch of them here. So now I'm getting a little older, and I just we like taking trips, my wife and I, and so we're just kind of easing into old age. I'll probably keep working here for the foreseeable future anyway. I really enjoy what I do, so there's no sense quitting. And it's just fun now watching my kids grow, and they've all gotten married, and now we're just collecting grandkids. And that's great fun.
That's great. So, I mean, this entire building is the vet center?
No, just this little suite. So we're like a little office condo here.
Okay, I see.
So this part actually used to be a movie theater back in the day.
Really?
In Bristol, yeah. And then it became like a porno movie theater, I think, for a little while, from what I was told. And when we got here, it was just a shell. They just gutted it. And, so they built it up to our specs. And now we have, 3 counseling offices on the other side and 2 conference rooms.
That's a really nice arc.
Yeah.
For what this building is.
Yeah. And they maintain a lot of the classic pieces of it. Like you'll see some of the old ironwork and stuff, and some of the beams as you walk around the hallway, and so it's a good spot. And Bristol's just kind of a cool town. I never spent much time here before I started working here. Actually, my first day of work was my first day in Bristol. And I only lived 20 minutes from here, but we'd always, kind of go up the river and, to New Hope and Washington's Crossing, areas like that. But Bristol's right on the river. It's got a nice little vibe to it, and it's an old school town, so it's kind of fun. Well, let me tell you a little bit about the Vet Center program in general, if you want to do that.
Of course, yeah. That's perfect segue. Please do.
Okay. So this program was started in the late 70s. I think we just had our 40th anniversary, and they started at when the Vietnam vets were coming home. They would tend to seek out other Vietnam vets to talk to because the war was so controversial. A lot of the older vets kind of shunned the Vietnam vets when they came back. There were cases where Vietnam vets couldn't join VFWs and American Legions and things like that because I don't know. I guess they didn't consider them to be proper vets, and so they would just start hanging out together and sometimes in a local bar. But then these vet centers started popping up, and they were just peer counseling centers. It was just vets talking to other vets. And then as time went on and the program grew and became more formalized, they brought in actual clinicians, and a lot of the earlier clinicians were veterans as well. I don't know what the percentage mix is now, but still a lot of the people that work in the vet centers are vets. But we have quite a few civilian counselors and office people as well.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know you were a veteran yourself. My papa never brought that up.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And it makes sense.
It does. It was an interesting journey. I mean, I worked with some veterans when I was at Rutgers, usually policemen. But I never really was called back, to work with veterans until it was time to move on to another part of my career. So my first job was with the New Jersey National Guard, once I left Rutgers, and it just felt good. It just felt very natural, and because I knew the life. I knew what the stresses of military life is on families, and that's mostly who I was working with. At the time, the Guard Brigade was deployed to Iraq, And so I was working with a lot of families and kids that were just struggling with the stress of deployment. And it just kind of, got me thinking about it. And so when this job came up, it just seemed like a real natural fit. It was just a good segue.
Okay, I see. Yeah, I wouldn't even have thought that counselors would be veterans themselves. I don't know why. I guess when I think of, people who are in counseling, I just think of, like the traditional sense of that.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Now, is that something that's unique to your field of counseling? Like a lot of counselors who work with veterans are veterans themselves, or?
Yeah, not as much now, but earlier on, yeah. Part of it's just learning the culture and learning the language. And even each branch of the service has their own language and their own acronyms and their own abbreviations. So I'm still learning Army and Marine. I know Navy down pat, but and the Air Force is just like a mystery to me. I don't understand anything. But they're teaching me along the way. And and again, it helps me counsel them because I can ask them about their experience. What did you do? They say my MOS was such and such. And I was like, okay, so you had an occupation specialty. What was that? And then they tell me about their job and then their day to day. And then they start talking about what they experienced. So.
Okay. I might need you to text me a list of acronyms.
Oh God. They're
just
books.
Like the basic one. Like what is MOS?
MOS is military occupation specialty.
Okay. So
when you take a test, it's called the ASVAB test.
Right.
It's Armed Service Vocational Aptitude something. So based on your scores on that test, you can apply for different occupations within the branch of service that you're applying to. And a lot of times, services compete. Like, the Navy might say, well, we'll give you this cool job. And the Army might say, well, we'll give you this cooler job. And then you kind of get to weigh your offers a little bit. So everybody picks a specialty when they go in, and sometimes you stay with it, sometimes you don't.
Okay, I didn't know it. I thanks for telling me that because I didn't know what MOS meant.
Yeah,
and I know as time goes on, people are going to throw out acronyms, and I'm just going to be like,
yeah,
oh yeah, but in here I'm like,
yeah. No, and every war's got their own acronyms and their own nicknames, and it's just kind of progress. I had two cousins that fought in Vietnam. They both came back, and but I learned a lot from them as well. They're just listening to them talk, and I was like, oh, what's that mean? What's that mean? And so when I came here, I was like, oh yeah, I've heard this before. So
as time goes on, I guess what would be your overall message to, I guess, anyone who wants to do what you do, or to the people you talk to?
Well, for the people I talk to, get somewhere where somebody can talk to you, because so many veterans, so many people just, carry their pain by themselves, and it impacts so many areas of your life. And, if you have somebody that you can talk with, that you're comfortable with, and you can start to process things with, it can make a whole difference. It's like you're not carrying around this giant garbage bag of your stuff anymore. It's like you get to set it down, we'll sift through it with you, and you can come to some kind of peace with it. So I think having a good counseling relationship with somebody just makes your life make sense, and just becomes a little bit easier. We challenge you. We'll ask you to do some uncomfortable things as counselors, but I think, it's always directed in toward, some kind of growth or overcoming some kind of demon.
I see.
As far as vets wanting to get into this, we need more. This is a great job. And like I said, I get to work with heroes every day. So, ordinary guys that just came back and lived a life, but did extraordinary things when they were in the military. I've had Silver Star winners, Bronze Star winners. I've had men that fought with Patton in World War II. It's just... It's great. It's like a history book. And, so I get a piece of, by the time I do this patchwork of everybody's war, and, it just becomes this amazing tapestry of, this line that we all belong to.
I see. So when you were first starting, and you were getting through this, like what was the big confidence boost for you to continue to go on?
Just feedback from the vets themselves. When somebody tells you, I've never been able to tell this to anybody, like my whole life. And they trust me enough to do that with, and some of these stories are horrific. People have to do horrific things in war, and they're ashamed, or they don't want to be judged as monsters by their family. And, so for them, it's almost like, kind of coming into a confession almost, it's like, so let me unburden this, let me lay this at your feet. Tell me what you think. And so we go through it, and, helping people with not only their physical injuries, but their moral injuries. You grow up with a certain set of values about what's right and wrong and what makes sense in the world. And, God is just and everything. And so you go into war, that all that gets flipped upside down, and you see the absolute worst of humanity. So when you come back, you're injured, morally, your heart hurts. And so part of what I do is just listen to their story and help them patch up their heart. I feel so blessed with this job. I mean, it's been such a good calling for me. And my wife's a counselor too, and she does different kinds of counseling. She works a lot with families, and used to work a lot more with younger children in high schools and things. So we have, very different counseling experiences and backgrounds, but, it's nice to have a partner that you can, just kind of bounce things off of, that understands what the life is like. And, she's just been a wonderful, wonderful wife, wonderful mom, and just a really wonderful support all these years.
I'm sure you guys, learn from each other with your professions, right?
Yeah.
Or does that cross over a whole lot, or?
Yeah, it does. It does. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. It's, and she's whip smart. So she, she'll say, well, maybe you should have tried it like this, and I was like, yeah. Thinking about it, probably right.
My girlfriend's she's in a master's program right now for psychology and things like that, counseling. She wants to do addictions counseling specifically.
Wonderful.
So I just listen, because I don't know a whole lot about what she does. I'm sure you two have a great conversation.
Probably.
But
where's she going to school?
Going to Mercy.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's a good program.
Yeah.
Addiction field is tough. I started out doing that a little bit when I was, first out of the service. I did one of my internships at a facility, and it's a very difficult field to stay fresh in. There's kind of a high burnout rate with addiction counselors. They just, but the good thing about counseling, there's a million different paths you can go down. There's a million different things you can specialize in, and I think it's always really important to have an addiction background, because it shows up everywhere. Whether you're doing straight mental health, whether you're working with vets, I mean, there's always, an addiction component somewhere's in there, because, people want to, they tend to self-medicate before they actually go for help. And, for my vets, I mean, there's not enough drugs or alcohol in the world that'll make some of these memories go away for them. So when they finally get here, it's like, okay, let's put that stuff down and, get to work and start talking.
Jeez. So what have you found? What have you found that's the most helpful with dealing with something, or someone going through something like that? Just
with addiction, the approach I take is you take that off the table first before we start working on any other problems. You figure out a way to get clean and stay clean, and it's very traditional. My approach is very traditional. It's I'm a big believer in AA and NA, the traditional recovery groups, and because it gives people homework. All right. So if somebody's struggling with a problem and they just, try to manage it on their own, they might flail for a while. But if you say, well, look, this week I want you to go to 5 AAA meetings, and then I want you to find a sponsor whose number you'll keep in your wallet and you'll call every time you feel like picking up a drink. That's a tangible thing that they can do. And that's how they start to get their arms around their addiction. And, it doesn't matter how many years you have in recovery. I think you always have to stay close to the basics. I've got guys with, 30 or 40 years sober, but they still go to their meetings every week and they still talk to their sponsor every week. So, it's just, giving folks that are struggling a game plan. And that goes for, pretty much any kind of counseling. Here's where we are. What are your goals? And then we'll come up with some ways to meet those goals.
In your early life, where'd you grow up?
I grew up on Long Island, a town called Port Jefferson, which is about midway out on the North Shore. I grew up on the water.
I feel bad. I didn't even ask you where you were from. I was just like, oh my God, you've been all over the place. But where did it all start? So Long Island, huh?
Yeah, started on Long Island.
Okay. Okay. So what was your first time in Philly like, if you remember?
Philly was always a place that we drove through, and we always made fun of how smelly it was.
I know. It's okay.
It was always a place that we passed through on the way to Florida or some other
Somewhere
spot
cooler.
down south. Yeah. So, but my in-laws moved up here a little bit before I was getting out of the service, and we just started coming up to Bucks County and just really, really liked the area. We were looking for a place to land and raise our family, and came up here without jobs. Just got out of the service and left what we were doing in DC. Had a couple of small things lined up here, but it was just kind of a leap of faith. But we really liked the area. We'd heard a lot about the schools in the town that we lived in, and it just seemed like a good fit. And brought my wife home closer to her family, and worked out on a lot of different levels. I didn't want to go back to Long Island because it just became a zoo, and
Oh, okay.
I mean, my house is 120 miles from here, and there are times where it's taken me 6 hours to get out there. It's just, it's a lot. So yeah.
So you going back, like you literally essentially built this from the ground up.
Yeah.
What some of the trials and tribulations of that?
Well, not knowing anything is a big trial.
Sure.
I mean, we came in pretty cold, and the guy that's my outreach person now started out as my office manager. He was actually the first hire at the center. They hired him before they hired me, and then we had one counselor when we started, so it was just the three of us, and we were just picking brains. We were fortunate because the team leader in Center City, Philadelphia, and also in Olney, Northeast, had both been in the program for years. And so they were just wonderful sources of knowledge. I was actually stashed at both places for a month each when I first, before we actually opened our doors, just to kind of get an idea of what to do and what the flow was and how the programs worked and things like that. So I had some really good teachers along the way that helped us out. But a lot of it was just trial and error. We'd make a mistake, get yelled at, and, okay, we won't do that again. Now we know. But we had really good support from our regional office, and they were in Towson, Maryland, so they covered a big area. And as a new director, I got a lot of attention from them. And anytime I had a question, they were always available to answer questions or help us through a situation.
That's cool. As I go through the field of audio and music, I never really thought about how valuable it was to have like good mentors.
Oh my God.
It's like make or break kind of thing.
Build your network. The more smart people you can surround yourself. I mean, again, that's the secret of the Reagan presidency, right? And just surround yourself with really, really smart guys, and learn how to communicate and manage those folks. But you can't have enough mentors, and it's always just nice to have a number that you can call, even if it's just a bad day. You don't have any like questions about the field or anything. It's just like, I'm stuck, or I'm just jammed up right now, and I just need to talk to somebody. It's good to have folks like that.
Sure. I mean, I'm sure you're that person for a lot of people too, right? You're always on call, right?
Pretty much. Yeah. All my vets have my cell number, so and they're very respectful about it. They will only call me if it's a real emergency, and but I get those calls in the middle of the night sometimes, and we're used to it. My wife's a counselor; she gets those calls too, and it's just part of the deal, I guess. We're not a crisis center, but sometimes, you'll get that call at night where a vet just needs to be told, go to the crisis center, go to Lower Bucks Hospital, go to Doylestown, drive down to Philly and go to the VA, just to kind of give them direction or talk, through a situation that they might be going through. And sometimes a 5-minute phone call with me will give them a night of sleep. So that's a good trade.
Did you mentioned you did a little bit of crisis work though?
Yeah. I always have, probably
Wow.
since the 90s. I worked with a couple different agencies, and just be on-call crisis work, things like bank robberies or workplace deaths. I've done some disaster work as well. I worked with survivors of Hurricane Katrina and also 9/11, and also there was a plane crash in 1999 up in Rhode Island it was Egypt Air. And so I went up there and worked with those families as well. So it's kind of like being a fireman, It just, something happens and they just need counselors on site to help people decompress and just try to make sense out of the trauma that they just went through.
Now, is that something that counselors like on a list for, or did you have like a contact for doing that kind of work?
When I got into the field with, I met a gentleman who ran an agency called Crisis Care, and they were out of Michigan. I met him at a conference, and this is back probably mid-90s. And he just started telling me about what they were doing, and it just sounded fascinating to me. So, I became a contractor with them, and, kind of continued that relationship all the way through.
Wow. Jeez. Done it all.
Not yet.
Not yet?
Working on it.
What do you still have to do?
Oh, I don't know. I got a couple other states to get to and a couple more grandkids to have, so.
Okay.
But it's, it's been a fun life, I feel very blessed, to have found a field that I really enjoy doing, and that I'm not sick of, and then I'm not counting the minutes till I retire, because I have so many friends that are in that situation, and they're just, they're not satisfied by what they do for a living. Like I said, it's fun here every day.
And that's what keeps you going, yeah?
Yeah, yeah. One of my veterans says, if you rest, you rust. And
no way.
Yeah.
That's what that gentleman Victor said to me.
Mm-hmm.
And every night before I go to bed, I'm like, oh man, I didn't do curls or push-ups.
Yeah.
And that's what plays in my head first thing. I'm like, damn.
Yeah. That's a Tin Man quote from The Wizard of Oz. And my vets use it all the time. My friend Danny uses it quite a bit. And because he just keeps moving. And I think as we age, that is so important. Just to, have something to look forward to, have social friends that you can just spend time with, have activities that you can go do. My wife and I love to travel all over the place. We love hiking and, just walking and meeting new people. And, so we, I think it's just important because so many people just start to atrophy. They retire and then they just sit on the couch and watch Wheel and Jeopardy and wait to die, and that doesn't sound like a good life to me.
No.
It's too much to do yet.
No, I've noticed that with, my grandfather and a couple of people that have also been around there. It's like they run circles around.
I want to be your grandfather. I want to be that guy.
We're hiring.
He's amazing. I guess he's in his early 80s now, and he has the energy and the excitement of somebody half his age. I mean, he's just he's a good man. He's a lot of fun to be around, and he's contagious. His energy is contagious.
Yeah, it is.
People really feed off of that.
It is. But that's when my dad brought you up to do this, and my pop was like, oh yeah, Jeff's a great guy, and he was going on for a little bit. I was like, oh, like this is probably going to be like a really great talk. So I'm not gonna front, I've been a little nervous.
Why?
Sitting out, because I don't.
You're fine. You're very good at this, and
you think?
And you're going to be great at it.
I'm like sweating heavy.
Really?
Yeah.
Take your shirt off. It's fine. It's all good.
Oh yeah, I'm not on camera. No, I'm just kidding. But I knew this was going to be a good talk, and that's why I'm grateful for you for doing this and
my honor.
Everything. I guess if I could ask, if you ever have any veterans that want to do something like this, if they're comfortable, always welcome on.
I'll be sure to pass some your way because I have some really interesting folks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. People that have been parts of history, and they're just amazing.
Yeah, I would love that.
Okay.
Seriously. I think that might be a good place to wrap it.
Sounds good.
So thank you for what you do.
Oh, my pleasure.
And thank you for your service too.
Thank you.